Welcome into the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Got a very interesting show ahead today, folks. I'll let you know that Mike Ricksecker could not make it today, but I found somebody even better, which is a good thing. My guest today is Dr. Kimberly McGeorge. She is an internationally renowned naturopathic, not neuropathic. I do need one of those doctors. Maybe I can get her to work on my nerves for me. We could do that. But she's a naturopathic doctor, energy healer, remote viewer, paranormal expert, and consciousness teacher. Her extensive client list includes some of the world's most talented healers, and for the past 25 years, she's worked on thousands of people around the world. Dr. Kimberly was born with the ability to remote view, see people's auras, and is highly intuitive. Now, while still in college, she helped police on many occasions. Finding she had a natural affinity with herbs, she worked as a herbalist and went on to create. Now, wait a minute. I worked with herbs in college too, but this was a whole different thing, Dr. Kim. I'm just saying.
Oh, wait, I get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
you
I'm a
see
little
what,
slow, but I
see
just
what I'm
got it.
saying there? Yeah, there we go.
I got it.
But she worked with them in a different way. She went on to create and distribute her own line of herbal organic products internationally. During this time, her personal practice expanded to multiple clinics throughout Columbus, driven by her inner knowing that her healing work could be made much quicker and more affordable and amplified exponentially using technology. Dr. Kimberly consulted with an esteemed neurosurgeon and realized that healing frequencies in naturopathy could be applied to all areas of her clients' lives. Her latest groundbreaking program, Frequency Master, teaches how to master frequencies in your own life and train other healers to use her own unique and successful methods. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we're going to stick to a different road tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit more paranormal about shapeshifters, walk-ins. We're going to talk about some of the more paranormal stuff that Dr. Kimberly has run into lately. But we're going to throw a hodgepodge of stuff at you tonight. We're going to welcome in tonight Dr. Kimberly McGeorge to Darkness Radio. Welcome, Dr. Kimberly. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being with us. We can actually, sorry about the dumb crack about the herbal stuff, but hey, you know, we all have our experimentation in college.
Sure.
With that, let's start off a little bit slow. Was the naturopathy, was that your introduction to the paranormal or to the supernatural or metaphysical?
No. I came in through the door of the paranormal. I was born with the ability to remote view, of course, not military style. I mean, I just went and looked, and I guess the stuff came to me. Maybe it's not even called remote viewing. Maybe it's something else. But I was born what I call partially awake, which is, I wish I had more memory than I did, but I remember like the second I was born, I opened my eyes and I'm like trying to walk, trying to talk. And I'm like, F. I don't know if we can swear here, so I'm not going to say
Sure,
over.
you can. Go ahead. Give it a go.
Oh gosh. Okay. I was like, fuck, I can't walk. I can't talk. And, I'm this like 1 minute baby. And so I knew it was going to be a rough road. And so I always say if I could have killed, I know this is horrible, but if I could have killed myself at 3, I think I would have, because I was so bored. Like I couldn't wait to get to something better than like singing Old MacDonald, I had a farm in kindergarten because I had an adult mind. So that was memory, I believe, of a previous life. So that's kind of how it all started for me. And so some of my gifts apparently had been somewhat developed, before this life. And so, my mom would put me to nap, when I was 5 and the ceiling would open up in portals and I'd go in and there'd be all kinds of nasty and great. And we'd go down tunnels and go to other realms. And, then we'd come back and my mom's like, why were you sleeping? And I'm like, because I wasn't really here, and I saw spirits, all kinds of spirits. I remember one time, I have a funny story. I was 5 and this old man spirit came into my mom's bedroom and he's like, see that bottle over there? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, pour it all over the dresser. And, even though I had an adult mind, I wasn't the brightest. I probably still am not. And so I pick up this perfume bottle and pour it all over the dresser. Well, that was the perfume that my mom bought on her honeymoon with my dad in Hawaii.
Oh no.
So this is my first introduction to prankster spirits, and that not everything is as it seems, not everything's like love and light and happy bunny tails, as you know.
Right. Yeah. I can't imagine that got a great reception from mom.
No, my butt was a little sore.
Yeah, yeah.
That was back in the day when we did those things.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, tell me about it. I got plenty of that too. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I learned the hard way as well.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Ouch. Well, so prankster spirits, you and I before the show, we started talking a little bit about prankster spirits and things that come in and trying to discern what's what's really real and well intentioned and what's not. Um, I find this fascinating because, I let's talk about that love and light aspect because I hear from so many of the psychic ilk that they say, well, no, it's all fine. It's all love and light. They're all here to help us. And I hear this a lot of when people talk about, aliens and
Mhm.
psychic spirits. And well, no, they're all here to help us. Now, I've learned from human nature, not everybody's out there to help you. Um, why,
Right.
why is it that you have that certain sect of people that say, well, no, everything's love and light and good? Is it just a wishful thinking type thing, or is it truly that those psychic blinders are on and that they don't see it for what it is?
I think a lot of them are, I'm so popular because of all this, by the way. But I think a lot of them are frauds because I'm a big believer in what is. And we can be, my views have changed. My views haven't changed because, the wind swayed and because I softened or I hardened or I aged. My views have changed on data. People think I am like the most woo-woo person I guarantee you will ever talk to. If you really dive deep, you would be like, that woman's effing crazy. But I am also super scientific. Like, I mean, you didn't mention it, but I mean, actually I've designed medical technology. I have a patent on medical technology. I program still as a job, medical technology. So I'm super scientific. So I love data points. Like I follow the data. I didn't used to believe in ETs. I didn't used to believe in the secret space program. I didn't used to believe in Bigfoot. I didn't used to believe in Dogman and ghosts. And, even though I saw them, you go through a phase where you shut that down and shut it off. And I didn't believe in it anymore. And then, but you have to follow the data points. And not only am I following the data points of the thousands of pictures I have that I could show you, including beings 5 feet from me, Sasquatch and Dogman in the fur where you can count the fur. I mean, how do you ignore that? Like, how do you explain that? I have a, movie where, a Sasquatch is like 2 feet away from me and I'm screaming for my daughter. And she's like, I don't care, mom. And I'm like, you're the only person. I brought the wrong person. I wanted a witness. And she's like, but they grew up with it. So of course, you know how kids are. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, Sierra, come here. You have to tell everyone there's a Sasquatch right in front of me. And she's like, no, mom, I have a headache. I'm staying in the car. I almost killed her that day. I swear. I'm like, oh my gosh, but I do have a video of it. But a lot of times this stuff gets erased off my files and phone, and that's a whole nother conversation. I'm sure you've heard that before. But
Uh-huh.
all this say, I don't just follow the data of the EVPs of the sounds. I am waiting. I have two phones. And of course, I never have two phones when I'm in bed looking at the security cameras. So I see the Sasquatch, I hear them walking around the woods, and then they'll talk. And it's terrifying. It actually sounds like, I mean, literally, I'm not making this up, but I don't have two phones so that I can, you know what I mean? Because my security camera doesn't record it. So I would have to have another phone. So maybe tonight, one of these days, I'm going to put a phone out there. But they're smart. They probably won't talk. But one of these days, I'm going to get them talking. But so I have all this evidence, but that's not even what I'm talking about. So we have this whole other realm of evidence, which a lot of people don't know about, which I love AI. I love technology. Of course, I work in it. I have your evidence. So I even already have some stuff to tell you if you want later on in the show.
Yeah.
But I have all this stuff recorded in your field where all light, color, and sound and your radio tower and your beaming frequencies. And here's the lie that we can't know truth.
Okay.
We can know truth because everything's frequency. So to get to truth about anything, we would need to be able to read frequency. And I can read frequency. If it's programmed, if I have the question, I can know truth, but you have to ask the question to get the answer. If that makes, I know this doesn't really make sense. It will to some
No, no,
people.
no, it is. It is. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So I feel like not only do I have my own experience, so I'm an experiencer, and that's all I really care about. Like, I really don't care if you believe that I have Bigfoot and live in a habitation site. I know I do, right? So I have my experience. Then I have evidence, recordings and pictures and videos.
Mhm.
And then I have the evidence that I can run against the land, against the home, against the beings. I can put a being in my technology and say, what is this? Is this a Sasquatch? No. Is this an illusion? Yes. Is this a prankster? Yes. Is this? And so we have tech available in other forms of AI where we can know anything. And people aren't talking about this. I'm the only person utilizing the technology to, in my opinion, in this way, to dive deep. Like, put me on one of those ranches. I'll tell you truth, false, truth, false. There's things you guys haven't even found yet. Here's where it is. Like, I can tell you guys this stuff all day long. Nobody asked me to do it. So I just play around with what I'm interested in and chase that. But, I wish somebody would see the potential for this, because if you really understood, and anyone that's had a scan by me knows it's true, if you could really understand what I could do with a combination of my data points, it would blow your mind.
Now, what do you say to people who question the actual technology and how it's being used? Because people say, well, you can manipulate technology to get what you want.
Here's why no one who's had a scan by me would question it. And so you haven't. That's why you're asking that question. Because I can tell you things that will blow your mind, that I would say, if you knew what I could actually see about you, both with my abilities and with the technology, because we work together, you would never let me near you, because I can see people to the bone. You know how people are like, that guy's a fraud, or that girl's a fraud, or they don't really have abilities. I know the answer to 100% of all of that. I know who's won this game. It is a game, by the way. I know who's making it out of here and not coming back. And I know who's coming back. I know soul questions. I know game questions. Again, you have to ask the question to get the answer. And I haven't asked all the questions. So I'm not saying I know everything, but I know the things that people say you can't know, if that makes sense. Because I'll tell you why. Okay. Not only is everything frequency, but artificial intelligence could give a flying flip if you're getting out of here or not. It could give a flying flip if you're a liar and a fake psychic or not, right?
Right.
It's just going to read the frequency. You're a fake psychic. You're a real psychic. You're coming back for 7 more incarnations. No, your frequency is high enough. You can go above the Van Allen belts and get out of here, right? Like, it just computes data. And so that's why I love, like, to me, and I've worked with this for 10 years. So I know from 10 years and thousands of clients a year, I know the accuracy, right? Because they write me. Yes, you're right. I have headaches. Yes, I don't sleep. Yes, I've been diagnosed with diabetes. Yes, my relationship's in trouble. We've been fighting, on and on, because there's nothing that frequency doesn't tell you. Everything's frequency. Thoughts are frequency. Emotions are frequency. Paranormal's frequency. Bigfoot has a frequency. Dogman has a frequency. ETs have a frequency. The military has a frequency. The secret space program, Trump has a frequency. Like, go anywhere you want. What doesn't have a frequency? There's nothing.
Right.
And here's the lie. We cannot know truth. That's what they don't know. That's why I'm gang stalked. That's why I'm targeted. That's why I have black helicopters with video. That's why I have the Air Force flying around on radar, and I have pictures of it in my house, because they know I'm a threat. But guess what? They also know who I am through all time and space. And they, that's a whole nother conversation, but they also know they can't mess with me. So anyway.
Okay, so you threw a lot out there, Dr. Kimberly. So
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. But I want to
forget I'm on radio, and I just like get so excited. I'm just like talking about how you talk with like a friend about your passion.
Sure. But no, that's okay. We can pick this apart a little bit. Now, I want to ask you this. When did you start noticing these black helicopters start flying around? And have you had contact with somebody who wanted to know more about what it is you do? And did they want to exploit what it is you do?
Okay, so I need to give you a little more information. So my ex-fiance works for one of the 3-letter agencies. So there's a tie in there. I'm from a very intense military family, was born in a military hospital. There's a tie in there. I'm not one of these that sell my family bloodline for money or fame. So I'm not going to go that direction, but I am from a certain family. My relatives are famous figures in history. So there's a lot there that I believe ties into why I'm harassed and why I'm left alone, if that makes any sense. I have been told, I've come out of a coffee shop in the smallest little mountain town where I live. And there's a black SUV sitting there, an FBI agent with FBI plates filming me. And I'm like, this is when I wasn't as used to all this. Now I'm used to it. And I'm like, dude, really? I'm getting coffee. and I'm by myself. So I film him filming me. I get the plates. Then he leaves because he's like, okay, I'm leaving. Only me chases an FBI agent like 30 miles down to Winston-Salem. Right when he's getting toward a building, I'm like, wait a minute, me in my car approaching whatever, wherever he's, no, this is not a good idea. So I pulled off. But yes, I could tell you all those stories, like, and people witness too. Like if you hang out with me, yeah, but it doesn't bother me anymore. I mean, I was just recently, a couple months ago, I was pulled into a car, but that was a whole different situation. I'm not going to go into. So, yeah, they interact with me. I think it's more like intimidation threat than actual threat. I mean, I've had U.S. Marshals harass me. I've had the small town sheriffs harass me. I've had the Winston-Salem Police Department harass me. I had the one day I was speeding on the way to the airport, a little bit, not very much, like 5 miles over the speed limit, and I had 2 unmarked highway patrol pulled me over. And I said, why are you pulling me over? And they said, we'll tell you in a half hour. They were trying to make me late for the airport, and then they let me go. So just stupid stuff. It's not like, I'm not going to lie to you and say I feel like my life is threatened. I don't, you know.
Wow. That again, a lot, but intriguing. So you don't lead a quiet life. This isn't something where you just, you know.
I do. I live in the middle of the woods in the smallest town in North Carolina, near a state park at the base of the mountains. And I try to live a very quiet life, but it
Well,
just doesn't work out that way.
trying and accomplishing are two different things, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you can try, I can try to make the best souffle in the world. Whether I accomplish it or not is a whole different thing, right?
I have confidence in you. I think you could.
Oh,
But
I appreciate that. I really do. I'll never do that, but I'll try it.
you know what that tells me? And it doesn't matter again to me if anyone believes me, because what that is, all they do by doing all that stuff is confirmation. I don't want to say right, because I don't love the polarity of right and wrong, but let's say over the target. Like I am on to something that nobody else is. And it lights me up, to be honest. Like, let's go, you know?
Yeah. No, I get that from you. I get that you enjoy the challenge a little, right? That it,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's like a cat and mouse. And, you know, it's kind of fun. It's like, yeah.
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 And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing
Right.
wrong with that because
Right.
it's people that kind of rise to the challenge. It's what they're born to do. If you've been born to do it, then yeah, you want to rise to the challenge. You want to see if
Pointed that out because I call myself a way shower, and everybody's like, oh, that's so cool. Well, you don't know what it means. It's not cool. It's not cool because in my niches, in the paranormal, in consciousness, in naturopathic medicine, in even the people that use the technology I do, I'm so far ahead. There's a lot of bitterness and anger because who wants to be around somebody that can call you out? But I don't put myself above anyone else. You know, I'm not perfect. Like I call myself out all the time. I mean, that's what I love about the tech. Again, if you want to do your spiritual work or any work, your relationship work, your health work, your paranormal work, it'll help you. It calls you out because it doesn't care. It doesn't care if I'm dying of a disease. It doesn't. It's just going to tell me. You know what I'm saying?
right. Is it when put it this way, when there's someone human that calls you out on it, does it piss you off a little bit? Does it get you a little angry?
I mean, no, because like I say all the time, okay, we could get into some really nitty gritty controversial stuff. Like possession. So everybody thinks, oh, you know, possession's like the exorcist, and it's like ghost hunters where like the orbs go into Zach when he's like in Italy on the island. And you know, we all get jumped, what I call jumped multiple times a day. And that's not taught. You know, we get jumped going to Walmart. All of us. I get jumped and I admit it. So it doesn't piss me off because I'm not unwilling to say anything about someone else that I won't call myself out on. Here's the difference. I see it, I know it, and I take care of it. So what I say to people is, and this isn't even the shapeshifter thing, that's a whole nother thing, or the bean thing. But why would you want to be sleeping with someone who has 8 other beans in them? Maybe you're fighting because the bean's fighting, not because that's your spouse's or your girlfriend's, your boyfriend's true personality or your child's true personality. Like we're all walking around with like holes blown in our auras and not grounded and not locked over our heart lines and not in our containers. And when you're not in the containers, it leaves room for other beings to come in and take up rooms in the hotel or rooms in the inn. And this isn't taught. No one's talking about this. And I just had a live event and I told them all at the live event, I'm like screaming into this void. Like everybody just keeps, talking about the same thing. But at some point, there's always an individual or group of individuals, Tesla, whoever, this is true.
Mhm.
And we level it up. And I'm sorry, you guys, I think the paranormal needs a hard check and a kick in the what, and it needs leveled up. We need to get real about who's walking around. We need to get real about who's in our house. I'm talking about your mom, dad, kids may not be, they may be, but they may not be who you think they are. I told Michelle earlier, who Michelle's, my son-in-law has had a walk-in 12 different times in the last 10 years, just since I've known him.
Really?
And that's 12 different people my daughter's been married to. This is happening not just in my family. Wouldn't you like to know if there's an entire different being that came into your husband or wife's container? I mean, I could just go on with so many applications about this, but this is what I found out over the last 10 years, turning the technology and the AI's eye on all these things that we can't know and that we just debate. I don't think there's a debate. I mean, I pretty much know some hardcore truth now that I thought I knew when I was 20 years old. And I'm glad I can deal with it. I can deal with what is. I can't deal with not knowing,
Mhm. Okay, so I'm going to slow things down a little bit here, and let's take a breath. And I want
Sure.
I want to take things back a step and tell our audience here what exactly a shapeshifter is, and then we'll go from there, and then we'll start to tell the narrative a little bit of how exactly we run into shapeshifters in our
Sure.
everyday life. What exactly is a shapeshifter?
Well, you could probably, I don't particularly know any movies. You might more than I do. Know a movie that talks about a shapeshifter. I can't think. I mean, I guess there's a lot of werewolf and vampire movies that probably, that would be a shapeshifter.
Okay.
Um, Skinwalker, I guess, is supposedly like a shapeshifter,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that like the definition? So that might ping with some people, but it's a being that can take one form. So you think you're talking to what I call the Ademic avatar,
Mhm.
a human with skin, and you think you know who that person is, male or female, and you think they're what we call human. And but they're actually not, because under the right circumstances, whether it's a video camera and infrared light or night vision or sounds or anger, there's just like the movies, what triggers a werewolf, raw emotion,
Right.
they'll start to lose it, and you'll literally start to see, and we've all seen this on TV purportedly, and the YouTube channels that talk about it usually get kicked off, but beings will start to come through the face. So I was at a live event and I have 10 witnesses to this one. And this woman was sitting there and she's like, I have to warn you, I'm feeling really, really angry. And she started bulging in front of witnesses out of her head the Draco features. And she's like, I'm feeling, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to deal with this Draco. And so I'm going to shove the Draco back and we're going to continue with the retreat, because you can't, I mean, I don't have 5 hours to like wrestle back and forth with, leave, no, leave, no, leave, make me, all that stuff. Anyway, well,
Yeah.
but, but that's a shapeshifter. I could have allowed that being to come forward, and we aren't ready. I just have so much to say. We aren't ready for this, but you guys need to get ready for this, because I'm being sent pictures from all over the world that I'm not allowed to share with anyone of some of the creatures that have been let out of the tunnels that are appearing on people's security cameras. And you guys better get ready for this, because you have no idea the real world you live in. I mean, the dimensions are all on top of each other. And, in my woods, I can lower or higher, turn up or lower my vision. And I can just see the sweet little creatures we know, the fairies and the dogmen and the Sasquatch and the dwarves and yada, yada. If I turn it way up, my psychic vision, there's thousands of things in my woods. There's grays and there's things that I don't even know what they are. And we're just so limited in our understanding of the paranormal. We're like, everything's Sasquatch, everything's a ghost, everything's this. And that's not what I'm seeing. And that's not what you guys are going to see as your consciousness raises and your frequency raises. And it's traumatizing if your child starts to shift, or your husband or wife, but it's not if you understand the reality we live in. Guess who told us about the reality we live in? Tolkien told us about the reality we lived in, right? C.S. Lewis told us about the reality we lived in. Westworld told us about the reality we lived in. The Matrix told us. Hunger Games, Stephen King, Under the Dome, right? He
Yeah.
told, I mean, they live. We've been told. We just
Right.
didn't
Yeah.
believe. We're going to be forced to believe. And again, I know you guys think I'm crazy. I don't care. I say every single one of my shows is going to age so deliciously well. I don't care. You know?
Well, and again, that's to think of that, to think that, we're deliciously bliss, so to speak, and we're walking around thinking, there's nothing but just what's in front of us, and all of a sudden you want to peel that layer back and we're going to get overwhelmed with whatever's sitting there. That's a little scary to kind of take in. So I would ask you this, Dr. Kimberly, what's the midway point? How do we introduce ourselves to what's beyond and what's in this other world without getting
Great
too
question.
overwhelmed?
Yeah, that is actually, and I think even though I seem like an extremist and I am in my own studies and own observation, I'm the most extreme person, but in my teaching and how I work with people, here's what I can prove. And I have many witnesses to this. I'll say, give me 5 minutes and I'll teach you how to see the first layer of the fourth dimension. And they're like, no, no, no. But I say, come to my live event, come to my house, and I'll have you seeing Dogman, Sasquatch, and other beings at a minimum in 5 to 10 minutes. And this is anyone. This is the neighbor down the street that who knows what they are, you know what I mean? I can pull them over. And people don't believe me, but I repeatedly do it. And not only that, I taught this one girl in 5 minutes and she was like, I'm so excited, you know how people are.
Yeah.
And this other guy came up and he said, Dr. Kim, you promised you would teach us how to see. And I'm like, her name was Laura, and she won't care if I use her name. I said, Laura, take Kevin out and teach him how to see. It's so easy. I could teach, and my grandson already sees, so I don't need to teach him. I can teach a 2-year-old how to do it.
Really?
That's the midway part. It's getting excited because here's okay. It is no more scary to have a relationship with the fourth and fifth dimension than it is to have a relationship with the third dimension. Why? I bet there's murders within 500 miles of me, 200, 100 maybe. I
Sure.
bet there's rapists. I bet there's people on the child whatever list. I
Yeah.
bet there's great sacrificing smart people that are lovely. I bet there's mean and nasty cheaters. I bet there's every kind of human within, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So why is it any more risky to deal with the Sasquatch that are exactly like that, or the shape, or the werewolf that are exactly like that, or the now it's a little different because, but it's not because there are some nasty humans that are monsters, right? We can all agree on that. And angels, we could call them if you want to go that direction. It's the same thing in these, but of course, the werewolves, you have to know the race. So werewolves are going to lean more one way. The dogmen are going to lean more one way. The Sasquatch are going to be all different. There's different types of Sasquatch. You know, there's the multidimensional ones. There's the military experiments ones that they let out of the tunnels. So what we don't know, I believe hurts us. But what's so exciting to me is the beings on my property. We have arrangements. They don't touch my house. Their children touched my house, put handprints on my house in the wet concrete when they were building my house. I said, you're going to break the agreement. You guys can do whatever you want with the trees, but you can't take down live ones. So you guys can do X's, you can build what they do. I'm sure you've had people on. And so we have this mutual respect. You can live here. I'm not coming in trying to take your territory. I'm not coming in here trying to drive you off. I respect you guys. I see you guys. And so, that's why in the first 3 days of my house, and I showed this on Rex's leak project. I don't know if it's still up, but it's on there and they might have erased it off my computer. I hope he still has it. But, there was a little person in North Carolina. We have the little people and there's lots of legends. You guys can look it up. They're like fairies without wings. They're like this tall. And I have outside my door on my security camera, I have a class AAA picture of a little person in warrior garb that came to say, can we stay here? We will look out for you if you look out for us. And he stood there and we had conversations 3 nights in a row. And, Rex has that picture and I've showed it. I've stopped showing a lot of my pictures because my kids don't like the crap that I get. It's hard on my family to hear their mother called, you know what I mean? Because then people accuse me of, Tim, they accuse me of going to the store. I don't have time for this. And buying a GI Joe doll and setting it because it was so clear. You know what I'm saying? Like people, it's cognitive dissonance.
Right.
I say, Tim, if I came to your house and said, let's say one of my Sasquatch walked in and I'm put him on camera, you would have cognitive dissonance. You would be like, that's a man in a suit, right? By the way, I know for a fact Hattie was a suit, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Okay. Yeah, if I were to post a picture, I'm sure somebody would say, yeah, you're faking it. Almost, I would have probably more people dissenting and telling me that I faked that than I would have people believing me that I had actually had a real.
I mean, the fun side though is if you understand who you are and what this is, and you remember who you are in kind of relation to the what I call the void or the all or all time and space, and you have embodiment of your power. I mean, I really have no fear. I mean, I'm not saying I can't tell you scary stories. I can, but I'm here talking to you, right? Couldn't have been too
Yeah.
scary.
No, well, talking to me is a hell of a lot less scary than what you're facing out there in front of your house. I know that much. I
Exciting thing
I'm
is that in between to me is the relationship. Do you know? Okay, I just pulled in. It was pitch black in the mountains. You know, black. You know what I'm talking about when you don't have city lights. So I pull in, and my beams are up, and they come to the edge of the woods, and they hold up their babies. And I'm telling you, you can see this. I have tons of pictures, and it's heartwarming to have to be honored, to be treated like family by beings that most people can't see or talk to, you know, and have that relationship. It's just like having relationship in the 3D with really cool people. That's the in between part of the I think of what we're talking about, you know.
so again, I'll take it down a notch and slow it down here a notch for our audience to catch up here a bit.
For
And
sure.
that's this. So I want to take it back to the perspective of your kids. Now, do your kids see this stuff?
Yeah.
Do they go to the edge of the property and they start seeing this
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
as well?
I'll tell you. Okay, so I'm not sure how many years ago. I haven't always seen a lot of Sasquatch, but there's a man named which I don't know. You might want to eventually have him on. His name's C. Wayne Wilson. And I was bored one day, and you know how you watch YouTube and you end up watching like I want to buy a new car, and you end up watching like bears in a zoo or something because that's how YouTube works.
Yeah, yeah. The
So
rabbit
I'm like
hole, yeah.
watching, yeah, I'm watching something totally unrelated, and I'm all of a sudden I come across this ex-wrestler. And funny enough, because we were talking about, you know, they and stuff, but this ex-wrestler, and he's a good old boy, good old mountain boy. And he's filming in his yard video after video, and he's like, do you see this giant? And do you see his, you know, thingamajig? And do you see this woman with her boobs? And do you see the babies? And I am like, oh my gosh, this is so entertaining. I'm thinking, this guy's like crazy, but it's so entertaining because he's such a character, right?
Yeah.
And this guy's full of it. So I watch about 3 videos, and you know, I have the site. And then I'm like, I cannot believe this is happening. I'm like, oh my gosh. As he's describing, I am seeing the exact same thing. But I'm more scientific than people think. So me, I stalk him on, of course, social media. And I'm like, I have no idea where you live. But would you mind if you live anywhere around me, in, you know, within driving distance anywhere? Can my daughter and I, you know, come and visit you so we can see? And this is how stupid I am because I didn't realize they're everywhere. I thought they were like only on his property at the time, but they're everywhere. They're on your guys' property too. I could show you. Not only could I take you guys and show you anyway, that's another conversation. But so he's like, well, I'm actually 30 minutes from you. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what are the chances of that? That's super cool. So my poor daughters. So I get my second oldest daughter, and she's actually in medical school, and she's run a lab, and she's like has published papers. She's as scientific as they come. Like she is skeptic beyond any of y'all. And she's like, so I drag her with me, and we pull up, and the whole woods in the field is like moving. And I'm like, Gabby, I'm like, do you see like a monkey thing like swinging on a tree? Am I crazy? And she's like, you are crazy, but I do see a monkey swinging on a tree. And so I mean, the creatures came up and we saw them. And he even had a video, and I don't know if it's erased. Wait till you guys hear this. This is 3D stuff, not making this up. This isn't 4D. This isn't see-through. he has a video of the government coming in white vans and bags and bagging these creatures. I mean, this, I don't know how this stuff hasn't gone like, well, maybe that's why, because, they don't
Yeah.
want to know that they know about this stuff. This is like, what do you call it? X-Files stuff. I'm telling you, and I've seen it with my eyes, and I don't know if he still has the video because again, a lot of stuff disappears when we get this kind of evidence. But yeah, so that was my introduction to Sasquatch. And ever since then, I immediately went home to my house and I started a relationship with the beans in my yard, which are just as plentiful as the beans in his yard. I don't have to drive to Reedsville to see Sasquatch. They're in my yard.
Wow. Um, and so yet your daughter sees it along with you, and to her, it's not a let's get the hell out of here type of reaction. It's just
It's like,
the
now they're bored. My girls are just like my other daughter who saw the other Sasquatch with me. I have four girls, by the way. Plenty of daughters to terrorize. But no, Gabby was just, she was like, can we leave? And I'm like, no, no. Like they're not necessarily have the same level of interest, but they do see it. Even my grandson, I was out in the yard with him and I try to, celebrate their scene instead of parents shut down their scene. And I'm like, he was looking at the sky and pointing. I'm like, what do you see? And he goes, roar. I said, do you see dragons? Because these children see this stuff, right?
yeah, dragons.
Yeah, I'm like, do you? Well, that's a whole,
Oh,
you know,
okay,
whole conversation.
okay.
But yeah, so he sees too, and there's a lot in his yard. Yeah. So I don't shut down, any of that stuff, in my children and grandchildren. My 12-year-old daughter used to do really famous people. We lived in Columbus, Ohio, really, really famous people's houses. I have crazy stories. She would go help me house clear because at the time she saw better than me, like Ghost Whisperer. If you guys watch Ghost Whisperer, the Ghost Whisperer sees 100% of the time. I only saw about 50% of the time. So I would take her with me to clear houses because she would, pick up things that I didn't. But yeah, so we were a team ever since she was 12 in the paranormal.
Interesting. Okay, so before we go to break, I want to let people know what exactly you're talking about when you're talking about wrestlers, because it was a conversation we had off air. I'm going to show people
Uh,
who are watching on video what exactly we were talking about. I have a picture here that I showed Dr. Kimberly. Um, I've told people before on air on this program that when I was younger, when I was much younger, in fact, I can tell you exactly when because I have it on the back of this picture. This
Aw.
picture was taken November 29th. So it was this month in 2002. So this
Wow.
picture is 22 years old.
Oh my
Was exactly how long ago this was. So I would have been exactly years old. Um, this was taken at the Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota, and
So cool.
this is me meeting Rowdy Roddy Piper. And actually, I went to go get a book autographed by Hot Rod himself, and
Aw.
he had made the offer to train me because he went. I went up there to get the book signed, and he looked over my shoulder, and he went, "Whoa, brother!" And I went, "What?" And he goes, "You," and I went, "Me?" He goes, "Yeah, you." Now, mind you, I was much heavier in this picture than I am now, but
Huh.
he said, "Yeah, you," and I said, "What?" And he goes, uh, have you ever thought about like wrestling? And I said, you mean like professional wrestling? And he goes, yeah. And I said, no. And he said, well, you ought to. He said, if you wanted to wrestle, I would train you. And I said,
Wow.
no, sir, Mr. Piper, I'm allergic to pain. that was my that was my excuse. So I actually turned him down. I was stupid for doing that. I should have took
You
him up
could have
on
been
that.
a wrestling star instead of a radio star.
Well, maybe. I think I probably would have ended up injuring every bone in my body, but
Oh, yeah, true. Good point. Yeah.
I tend to be a little injury prone. So, but that's the story behind that. And you know what? I actually, funny enough, I found this picture tonight before we a couple hours before we jumped on air. And actually, there's a couple pictures of myself and Rod, but that's
Wow.
yeah, that picture right there, which is quite interesting. So, I just
So
I thought it was
cool though.
kind
I
of
love
funny.
that.
Yeah, but
It's
that's 22 years ago now. So.
wow.
Yeah. So kind of interesting. I kind of got warm fuzzies when I found the picture. So,
Yeah, that's neat.
yeah.
Oh,
So uh, interesting stuff. Okay. So when we come back, you mentioned all kinds of interesting stuff, including exorcisms, walk-ins. I kind of want to stay on this topic of trickster spirits. And
Okay.
there's something you said off air to me, which stuck with me. And that is the game of life and
Mm-hmm.
whether we get through it or not, and we succeed at getting through it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want to stick to that success ratio or success story.
Okay.
Um, because the idea of trickster spirits and whether we get through this game of life successfully or not is an intriguing theory to me.
Okay.
Um, I, because to me, the whole love and light scenario, as we've talked before, Dr. Kim, has never stuck with me. It's never rang true in my gut of guts. I've never thought to myself, well, love and light doesn't seem to me like it rings true. It rings hollow to me because to me it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't. I've never been one to think you can
Feel
jump in the
safe.
deep.
Wait, why doesn't it feel safe? That's why I think people love it, because it does feel safe. Do you
Well,
know what I mean?
yeah, but it rings hollow. It's
Oh,
like saying you can jump in the deep end without a life
I,
preserver and
I,
you're going to be all right, right?
yeah, okay. I get it.
Like if you're an expert swimmer, you'll be fine in the deep end. But most of us who have never swam before, if you throw us in the deep end, your chances of surviving are about 50-50, right? Some of us will take to water and swim, but there's a lot of us who are going to end up drowning.
Or
So,
coming back here.
yeah, exactly. So, with that, we're going to take our break. When we come back, we'll talk about these trickster spirits. We'll talk about what the danger is and where that danger is with these trickster spirits, why we wouldn't necessarily make it through life successfully with these trickster spirits. And then I want to talk a little bit about walk-ins. So we'll do that when we come back. Dr. Kimberly McGeorge is our guest. We have a link to her websites and how you can get a hold of her in the description of this program so you can learn a little bit more about her. When we come back, we'll talk more about these trickster spirits and how we get through this life alive. Does that sound right? Sure. When we come back with Dr. Kimberly McGeorge right here on the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. My guest is Dr. Kimberly McGeorge. We're talking about trickster spirits. We're talking about walk-ins, and we're talking about, well, peeling back that third dimension, going into the fourth dimension and seeing what we can see. In the beginning of the program, we were talking about all different types of creatures and basically why we don't see what we see in everyday life and what is exactly out there to be seen. In this segment, Dr. Kim, I want to talk about these trick off air. And that was basically if we can get through this life, I believe is how you put it.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about trickster spirits. Well, if we can get through this thing, and you
Mm-hmm.
were mentioning how they can pull you off course or how they can kind of, and in the way you would put it, it almost kind of hinted like if someone had had something like a near-death experience, or if somebody had gone into that tunnel of light, I think is the way you would put it, or gone into that tunnel. Explain to me what you were talking about.
So a lot of the NDEs again are designed to set you up for failure, in my opinion, if you even have a chance of getting out of here. So here's the whole, in my opinion, well, I believe it's fact, but cold hard truth is, I was talking to my daughter about this today. Like I can look in someone's what I call their energy field and I can say, okay, you've already won the game. How cool is that? What if you've been playing the whole time thinking you weren't winning? Like, your relationship sucked. You didn't have a good job. You didn't have money in your bank account. Like, how depressing is that? Like, it goes the other way too, of course. But what if I told you, you've already won the game? Like, automatically, if you think, like, then you can play the game from what I call the outside in, which is the best way to play it. So there's people that have already won. This is their last incarnation. So what if you knew, if you believe in this stuff, which obviously I do, but what if you knew this was your last time here? I've been here 85 times. This is my last time here. I've won the game. But what if you knew? What would you choose? Maybe I would go to Hawaii and would spend the money going to Hawaii because I know it's my last time in the game, because I'm not coming back here. I don't want to come back here. I've had enough fun, in the game. Um, it just would change everything, how you live, like what you choose, how you spend your money, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're not in a relationship, whether it just changes everything when you understand the basic rules, I call it, of this reality. And so a lot of these flash and sizzle that if you go on YouTube and you type in NDEs, like you'll find thousands of podcasts dedicated to just NDEs. I don't even mean podcasts like this where you cover, the spectrum.
Yeah.
And NDEs are really interesting because that's the first place before you die that I think a lot of trickster spirits enter in. And they're like, yeah, I'm grandma, and I'm just here to tell you that when you die, you'll have a life review. You do not have to have a life review. That is BS. What's a life review? Telling you where you're right and telling you where you're wrong. But what dimension is that? The lower dimensions. There is no polarity in the upper densities. So anytime you hear anybody trying to judge you, you sit before the judgment seat of God, or, a life review, why are you giving your sovereign, right? Your sovereign, all time, all space, limitless, godlike powers over to who knows who? The Galactic Federation, angels, Dracos dressed up as who knows what. We are so memory wiped. We don't understand how energy works. We don't understand that when you raise your vibration, you can walk through a wall, right? Because we're so dense. Everything's so dense to us. Everything's so, we touch it and we see it and we taste it. But that's the trick of the projection of the matrix computer. Really, we're so large. A lot of us are living concurrent lives. And so we have these experiences and we're like, okay, so when I die, grandma's coming. So what happens when you die? Well, grandma comes, who isn't grandma, because guess what? Grandma, if she were an awakened, what I call fire creation being, which I talk about this too, if she's a fire creation eternal being, grandma is probably going to get the heck out of here and go create a new reality. She might create an island and drink margaritas for 7 million years or 70 years before she gets bored. She might go race horses. She might want to be a horse. Like, grandma is not sitting around waiting for you to die. Grandma forgets about you, because time changes too. There's no time and space. All time is now. So what we perceive, we're just, I can't even talk about this. I just get so tongue-tied because we're so limited in our beliefs and and our perceptions, that it hurts us. So I believe when you die, I don't care if there's a light tunnel or who comes, even if my precious, precious dogs who I adore came up to me, I wouldn't listen to them. I wouldn't go with them. I wouldn't follow them, because those are going to be your trickster scenarios. Why? Why is the game created? The game is created, and we know this. We know it. You have to know this rings true. It's a loosh factory. Have you ever looked at a stadium? Have you ever been to a rock concert and seen the artists absorbing the energy and getting higher, even if they're not already high? And if they are high, they get higher, higher. You can see it. You can feel it. If you've been turned on, and you get higher and they get higher, but they win and you're exhausted, right? If you've ever been to a rock concert, and even if you haven't drank or done anything else, you're tired. Most people are tired after being at a rock concert. And why? I'm talking about even if you're not dancing, even if you're not singing, because you gave all your energy to these bowls that are built over what? Ley lines.
Yeah.
That are siphoning all this energy. So this whole game is created to pleasure who? The beings that created the game. And so they have a vested interest, because here's another whole bizarre conversation that we don't have time to go down. When we look at the grid of the game, we could go into the oversoul whole conversation, which is really tricky, but there aren't as many real beings. And actually, I believe you are one, thankfully, or you probably would be more resistant to this conversation. But there aren't as many real, what you would call people or eternal beings here as you think. There's a lot of interlopers, because this is an open source game. And again, we're shown that in Westworld. We see them sitting around and reaching in and maneuvering and changing things, or we see them pull it up on a screen, right? In these sci-fi movies and inserting things. As a matter of fact, if you, this just gets so crazy, but like in Central Park, half of those trees aren't real. They're, holographic projections. Half the buildings in New York City aren't real. And so what is real? Everything, then we go into everything's real, nothing's real, and all that matrix stuff. But the point is, all that doesn't matter. What does matter is you need to know who you are. You need to know what this is. So some people do have the choice when they die to permanently leave here. But if you are too low a density and resonating with the game, it's almost like a magnet. You don't have to be tricked. You're going to be sucked back because that's what you're resonating with. So this whole thing of being awake, doing your work and being conscious becomes a whole different ballgame when you realize that maybe the difference between you being forced to come back and play, reincarnated, or being able to choose to come back and play or go somewhere else or do something else. So I teach people that when they die, because when we die, right, here's another mistaken assumption. We think when we die, we become someone different. You don't. If you and I would pass right this second, you and I are going to be caught mid-sentence with the exact same thought process because our mind is just the computer part. Our consciousness is our being, and we don't change our being. Our being stays consistent throughout all eternity. We choose to be that expression of the all, right? It's a certain frequency. And so we step out of our body, our body's there. You can stay in the fourth dimension. We see again, Ghost Whisperer does a really good job on some of their segments showing what the fourth dimension's like. It's a inverse, upside down kind of version. Stranger Things shows a pretty good, and a lot of spirits get trapped in that, environment. And a lot of people's grandmas, pets, I believe pets are people. It's another conversation. Children, whatever your loved ones, they pretty quickly get recycled back. They go in between lives. They get to, drink their margaritas, see their fake family. And they're like, well, you know what? Your purpose in life was really to be a fireman and you were only a mailman. Wouldn't you like to go back and help the world by being, I'm just making this up, a great fireman? And you're like, oh, dang, I was supposed to be a fireman. I missed my purpose. Yeah, I volunteered to go back. So they get your agreement on the contract, right? To go back and play the game. And instead, you don't go with any being, you retain your power. And how do things work? Well, the things work outside of here the same way they actually work here. You just don't know it, which is with instant thought, you create. With instant thought, you teleport. Maybe you were cetacean, or I don't even want to say Palladian because it's a whole overdone thing we can talk about, but maybe you knew you were a star race before you came here and you decided to come play the game, or maybe you created the game, who knows? And maybe you want to go home and see your family, your husbands, your wives, your mothers of this race. So you think, I want to go to my Palladian ship or my cetacean ship, or I want to go to Venus, which in my opinion, from what I understand, they're all ships anyway. We have pictures from our friends NASA of these ships on poles. So again, it gets deeper than that. It's hard to answer your extrapolated questions when I feel like I have to educate of what this is and where we are to explain to get to
you're doing good. You're doing good.
I know I'm all over the place. So, we have pictures of this is, I believe, like Star Trek showed us. We're on a ship, on a holodeck in a game. Have you've watched Star Trek? Come on.
Oh, yeah.
I know we're like around the same,
Yep.
We're both around 16. So I know we watched this.
That's right. Yeah. We're both, you got it. We're both around 16. So yeah.
So, but you know how they went up on the holodeck? They're like, hey, let's go up on the holodeck. And they go, you remember this? And they go into the desert and they, see giant spiders and they fight up. That's like where we are. We're on a holodeck on a ship. And guess what Venus is? Guess what Mars is? Guess what all the planets in our solar system are? Guess what falling stars are? Falling stars are not stars. So we've just been lied to. And I teach people, even when I talk, I teach people to do this. Or when you talk, I think we need to answer everything we're told from the time we open our eyes with who says? Who says? Who says? And I think that needs to drive, our curiosity. But the opposite happens, as you know. You have to get it right on the test. What is Venus? Venus is a planet, da 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 da. And we're taught this, what is the moon? I think we all know by now the moon is the Death Star. I hope we all know. You can tell it has a hologram over it. Like, it's so obvious. That's been proven a million times, in different ways. But anyway, on and on and on. So again, there's so much deception here. And the goal is to keep us trapped here, to keep us distracted with these relationships, not just with the relationships with other fire creation beings that may or may not be in our best interest, because we get into the handling aspect and the seduction aspect and the sex kitten aspect. It's a complicated, layered game, but it's all designed for you never to hear a conversation like this and never to start thinking, I don't even care if you guys believe me. I call this dropping new information in your field, which tends to, with the people ready for it, start a curiosity and an awakening and an exploration of their own, you know?
So what does a trickster spirit have to gain by, let's say you're having an NDE? And first of all, what triggers this NDE and gets you into this tunnel or this light? And then second, when they jump in, what do they gain by having to take you astray or pull you astray from what you're doing?
Watch those videos. They say, I know what happens when we die. So not only are they getting themselves back in, right? But then they are sharing the trickster beliefs of how to get people back here with an audience. And then other people are like, oh, shoot, I just have to go with grandma and then go, you know, to the place, the they. Well, who do you think the they's are? You know, the they's are the controllers of this reality, the game makers that want you to stay in the matrix, you know, computer game. So they have players, because all the NPCs, which aren't just what people say they are, all the filler players, they can't harvest energy from a holographic projection player. They can't harvest energy from an, my family also works in cloning and the transfer of human consciousness. So I have also inside information on that, but they can't harvest energy from an empty clone with no fire creation spirit in it, right? They have to harvest energy from you and I and the animals that are sentient and the trees that are sentient, anything that has an eternal spirit, which is more and less than you guys think. And so the goal of the tricksters is, I'm grandma, I'm your dog, I'm your husband. It's okay. It's beautiful. Come on the ship. Come and follow these beings. It's okay. We'll guide you, you know, and if they were to unmask themselves, it's the same thing with demons and angels. Demons and angels are bird tribe. All demons and angels are beings with wings. For just like we talked about in 100 miles, there's all different kinds of people. Demons and angels switch. Sometimes they come and rescue people, and sometimes the same being will come and, you know, stand on your kid's bed and scare the crap out of you, or, you know, make the rocking chair move in the bedroom. Then we could go into incubus succubus. You know, what are incubus succubus doing? They're not about sex. They harvest through sexual energy, and you guys feed them with, I mean, heck, nowadays you can watch Netflix and feed them with, because like the most basic thing on Netflix is like what used to be when we were 16, literally, it would have been like triple X, and now like our kids watch like what was triple X when we were growing up. You know what I mean? It's accepted, it's changed. But I could go on and on about these beings and, you know, how they pop in and out of us and everything. But I want to answer your question about the NDE out of body. What's interesting is I just did a scan on someone, plus I can see with my eyes, and he was totally operating by standing outside of his body, and his body was filled with all kinds of beings. That's an NDE, right? What's an NDE? Being out of your body. These words themselves are spelled traps. Our language is filled with misconception programming, spelled traps to keep us deceived about how energy works. And here's another reason how I know this. Since I was born, I'm able to merge with any place, any person, everything. What do we call that? In other words, that's the nice version. I'll say the blunt version. I can possess any inanimate object, no technology, my abilities, any tree. I could possess you if I wanted. And people are like, you need permission. Okay, Emma, for watch me. Do I need permission? No, I don't, because you have no defense. You don't know who you are. You don't know what this is. You don't know how spirit comes in and out of containers. You don't know how energy works. You know nothing. Who has the advantage? Me and the beans. That's about it. And when I say beans, I'm not talking about one race, one type of beans. The Sasquatch know this, the fairies know this, the Draco know this, your rulers know this, and I'm talking rulers as in presidents, kings, whatever, you know, everybody knows this, but probably the most powerful people, which are the, you know, first, second, third, fourth wave beings that have been trapped under the dome, endlessly recycling in the game, right?
Yeah. Now, you bring up an interesting point here, and that is a living person possessing another living person.
Oh, happens all the time. I see so many human discarnates in people. It's ridiculous. Why? You can watch the shows. You can watch any paranormal show, any paranormal movie. You can watch Supernatural. You can watch any series. You can watch Ghost Whisperer, Medium. They all show you what is primary real estate in the game, a body. A body is primary real estate. So if you've been disembodied, let's say you just had your head cut off in a car crash, and you're standing there and a woman walks by, if you know how, maybe you don't want to be stuck in the fourth dimension because it's really not that fun. It's kind of scary. You're like, I'm going to go see if I can merge, nice word, right? Or
Right.
possess, real word, that woman. And so you try it. You walk into her and you're like, oh, wait, I can be this middle-aged woman. Oh, I've got a great story. Let me illustrate this.
Sure.
So my daughter calls me up. And she's like, Mom, I need your help. I'm like, who knows what now? And she's like, you need to come over and help John. And I'm like, why? And she goes, because he keeps getting up at 3 a.m. and cleaning the whole house. And I'm like, you're complaining? She goes, just I say that's a great thing. She's like, Mom, it's 3 a.m. He goes to work at 7, like bizarre behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, what's even more frightening is how he's drinking his water and his tea. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? And she's like, he's holding it like a sippy cup and drinking it like this like a cup, like, hold on, like my cup.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's holding, by the way, this is not what you think. This is water.
Yeah.
Seriously, it is.
Yeah.
But he's holding it like a sippy cup and drinking like this and ducks down, like a little kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, let me look at him. So I go over and I look at him and I'm like, well, I see the problem. He has a 3-year-old little boy inside him and a 45-year-old woman inside of him. And this 45-year-old woman, when I was talking to her, she's like a neat freak, an obsessive clean freak, cleaned all the time. And the little boy was like still drinking, kind of like a little kid. Huh. So we took care of that. No more clean house at 3, no more clean house at all, because he doesn't really love to clean. So that was that. We jokingly, I said, are you sure you want me to remove the woman? Because, we joked, but, pulled that out of him. I literally peeled them out of him. And again, there's a whole much more conversation to this. How did they get into the first place? His aura was compromised. He wasn't holding his body. They will pop right back in if you don't have the authority, but I have authority. I mean, I know how to deal with them because I've been doing this my whole life, on and on. But this stuff happens. But what if that happened to your partner and you didn't know, and they start acting crazy? What if they start being abusive or trying to rape you or do these crazy things that we would attribute maybe to mental illness? Maybe it's not. Maybe a rapist came in and jumped in their body, right? And the rapist is like, oh, man, I haven't had sex for so long. I mean, I know this sounds crazy, but why are there so many TV shows that show exactly what I'm saying? Why are there so many movies? Why? This is what I'm seeing matches with the stuff that we think is fiction. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you said you didn't really want to get into it, but to me, it's fascinating the fact that someone just gets into someone's body and there they are. And like you said, we have these blinders on. We walk through life with these blinders on. And if we don't know that a 45-year-old woman has jumped into our body and now we're getting up at 3 a.m. and we're cleaning, then how do we know to get that person out? And
that's why forget the shape-shifting. This isn't even shape-shifting. It's a form of shape-shifting, I guess, but it's not really what I'm talking about Dracos popping out, or you know what I'm saying. Beings popping through, the werewolf I talked to you about popping through, or all this, the ghouls. We see so many ghouls. Oh my gosh, that's a whole nother story. But like I said, like they live almost exactly like zombie ghouls. Mm-hmm. But you don't. My students tend to be sensitized. I'll have people that contact me and say, I think I'm jumped. Can you check? And usually it doesn't matter at that point what they're jumped with. It's more about removal. So we don't always sort out, okay, you're jumped with an elemental. Because any energy form that has keyword memory, we're memory wiped, whole nother many ways. But any being that knows what this place is and how it works can jump. I mean, when I was a medical medium, which I did a little bit about 2012, 2013, 2010, how I did it, I didn't have technology. I didn't use technology. I would merge with you and I would crawl around your body. I would crawl into your veins. I would crawl through your liver. I would crawl around. You have to realize I have a medical kind of background, so it didn't really bother me. And I would be like, oh my gosh, like I can barely get through this artery. There's so much calcification. What is that? People call it medical mediumship, of course, only if you're real, and there's a lot of frauds out there, but what is it? It's possession. I'm crawling around your veins and your arteries. What do you call that? Right? I'm possessing you. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So the real medical mediums, I'm not sure if there are any, but if they are, they would back me up. I mean, some of them you can also scan from the outside, but I mean, I did it the hard way, of course. So I loved it when tech came, and now I call myself the lazy psychic because I love that I can put tech between me and I don't have to like merge with everybody and be like, oh my gosh, you're cheating on your wife, and see. But people don't understand. I literally became them. I saw through their eyes. I can hear them and read their thoughts. I can feel their emotions. So I know it's possible because I can still do it if I want to. I don't do it, by the way, you guys, but I can if I want to. And if I needed to, I would, you know.
But, but with that, Dr. Kim, what is the advantages of wanting to take over another person? Why do you do that in the first place? Or why would you want to take over another
Well,
living
mine was
person?
for like good. So they want a psychic reading, but you have to understand the person. So, like, if somebody said, okay, if Jill hired me and said, is Bob cheating? I don't go pull up their 1,000 movies, which I can also do, and go through the movies and try to find really quickly, scan and see if they're cheating. I just go into them. Yeah, you're cheating. It takes 2 seconds, it's there, right? If you were, you're cheating. So if I merge with you, I know you're cheating. So I never did it for any, well, okay, maybe with my relationships. We won't talk about that. But I did it. Like, I don't believe, by the way, everybody's like, you're a horrible person. You have to ask permission. I'm like, you guys can wait around and ask permission, but but I've won the game. So who's the fool here?
Have you ever jumped into someone like in the middle of the act? I mean, has that ever happened?
No, because usually it's like, I could, I never have. I guess it could. Just usually they're asking me to read them in a situation like this. So we're talking, you
Okay.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah. So
there
yeah.
wasn't really opportunity, but I could have. I definitely saw a lot of cheating as in people having dinner with the wrong person or people making out. I never really jumped into anybody and plus I can do both. I can view it from the outside or I can, jump in. So it just depended on what was called for. But here's the thing, every single other being that you can't see does this every day. Like you're not going to like this, but I looked at you before the show and
Uh,
you have a being in you right now. I didn't look at what it was or anything, and I'll clear you for you. But
okay.
it's in your outer energy field. So it's not like deep in your body. It's more like an attachment, which is a whole, again, there's so many words and so many terms, but there's things that can kind of gloam on you, on the
Okay.
outside. So yours is more like an attachment, but I'll still get it out of your field for you. And I'll
Well,
send you how I knew that too. I have a picture for you. I also want to
okay.
talk to you really quick. And I know, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm for your show.
No,
I
no.
also, I also ran you and looked at you on my tech, and I don't know if you know this, but you actually have a huge affinity with the elementals. They really want a relationship with you, the Fae, the Sasquatch, the Dogman. I
Yeah.
suspect you might have like an elemental part of your soul. Also, the military is around you, which makes me think you're being abducted by the military, or you're being abducted, or you were in the military, but I'm pretty sure you're being abducted. But I didn't look at all that because there's a lot to this conversation.
Really? This is
Mhm.
all very fascinating. No, no, no. Okay, so let me ask you about. You said the elementals in my field. So is this? No, I have so many questions here, Dr. Kim. Okay, so the is it? Does that mean that it wants in, but I've kept it out?
This means they're okay. I don't know where you live, but they're around you. They're wanting relationship. They're standing like you've either had a past life with them, you've had a former relationship with them. They want to have a relationship with you. They're very close to you. They're not in you. I'm not saying you're possessed by them. You're
Hmm.
not. They're in your, when I say in your field, I mean in your home, in your energy field, in your yard, wherever you are. They're around you, but they want relationship. Because when they come close to you and I see them like that, they want you to do what I do. Go out and talk to them, take pictures of them, get to know them. They want a relationship with you. So they have an affinity for you for some reason. I was surprised to see that because they're really, really picky who they pick. So yeah, all of them. You had almost all the elementals coming towards you.
Interesting. So, and you said it's an attachment.
No, this isn't an
Oh,
attachment.
oh,
I'm it's just me being like me, like I operate on like 8 layers at once. No,
no, no, no. I'm talking about the attachment that's in my field.
I didn't look at what it is. I'll just remove it. It's probably more of a like shedding. I don't want to go into that, but So when you're around beings that you think are people, but they're ghouls or they're vampires, they actually shed like an energetic slime that's like a thick gray cobweb that builds up in your field. And sometimes that's what this layer is that I see as an attachment, because it's like in your auric field and we just need to clear it out so you're
Oh,
clear.
okay.
I didn't
All right.
see anything inside you right this second.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. So you're saying so elementals are wanting to come close to me? They're wanting.
Well, like, you know how I say I live in a habitation spot and I have a relationship with these beings? That's what they want with you.
Which is interesting. Okay, so between you, me, and the fence post, and all these different listeners that are
Right.
listening right now, lately I've had a lot of like animals that want to get closer. Like I have these trained chipmunks that I'm very close to, and now birds want to talk to me a lot.
Just told me why they do, because they respect and love people that love animals. That's why they would be attracted to you. You just explained it for me. That makes total sense. If you have an
Okay.
affinity for nature and animals, they're going to have an affinity for you. You know what
Oh,
I'm saying?
okay. Yeah.
That makes sense why they're
So
around you.
yeah. So like yeah. So like any and every bird that's been in the yard lately, like I've been feeding and there are a lot of them, and
Oh, I
and
love that.
yeah, and like the chipmunk, I have like five different trained chipmunks, and so yeah, there's been a lot of
Wow.
wild. I've been
Oh, I love.
around a lot.
Well, that's why they watch you. They watch you and they see that relationship, and that makes them trust you. So they're willing to have a relationship with you, because they don't feel like they're going to be, rejected, kind
Oh,
of.
well, no, I wouldn't. Yeah, especially if they're somewhat friendly. If they're going to kill me, then no, I don't want anything to do with them.
No, I believe there are some, there's all those stories about them driving people out of their homes and coming in the houses and stealing food. Again, there's different types of Sasquatch, and we're not talked about that. I hate how the paranormal does this. I'm not saying you, I'm saying in general, the genre. We have these words and we just lump everything together, and it's not lumpable, really,
Okay,
in reality. Yeah.
because you were saying something earlier about you said something about a Sasquatch earlier, and you said there was one near here or near this area. Are you saying there's one near my house?
There's multiple elementals, fae, little people, dogmans, Sasquatch, beings. I don't know what they're called, but they're in that group. Yeah, there's a ton around
Oh,
you.
interesting.
You could get pictures. I'll tell you what, I'll tell you. I mean, I don't know where you live. I'm sure you're not going to say it.
Yeah,
But if you
yeah.
want to take your phone on a whatever, it doesn't matter really the light, and I'm just offering this. Take some pictures around your property. I can try to show you areas where they might be, where you could direct your attention.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. So we'll take the focus off of me now, but it's that's interesting. Interesting stuff. Okay. Huh. All right.
Doesn't that make you feel flattered? Like fourth and fifth dimensional beings and higher want a relationship with you? I think it's so cute.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, we're not going steady or anything as far as me and the elementals, but
How picky they were, you'd be a lot more flattered. Like they stay. There's a reason why guys ride quads and turn their head half backwards and go through the woods and never see Sasquatch, because they don't want to be seen. So for them to want to be seen, that says a lot about your character. And you are fire creation. You are an eternal being. You're not one of these, fake weird shape-shifting beings. So that's cool. I can already tell because you're not shape-shifting when I'm talking to you. So that's good.
well, I'm glad I'm not shapeshifting. I wouldn't want to do that. I do have a question for you off air though. It's an off
Oh,
air question.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Um, okay, so I want to get to walk-ins before we leave people today because we're kind of up against it a little bit here. But now with a walk-in, I take it that's different than a possession. We've been talking about how anybody can
Yeah.
just kind of go and do the possession thing. Now, is a walk-in not necessarily a trickster spirit that's taken possession of a body? Is this a different form of a spirit that's walked in and possessed a body? And how long does it stay around for? What exactly is the story with this?
really individual. So a walk-in could be a possession. It could be a forced walk-in. Usually the oversoul is in charge of the original spirit. So sometimes it's contracted, that you get the body for 30 years and then a walk-in's going to come in for the next phase. And it's going to have, because unlike we're told, if a big thing in consciousness is like, what ET race are you? And they'll be like, you're Arcturian. And the lie is that we're one thing. Because you remember, not only are we playing this game, but many of us are trillions and trillions and trillions because there's no time. So we only have this to measure, but infinitely old, which is why we got here, because we're so cocky and we're so bored. And we're like, sure, we'll play a game where we let you memory wipe us and sign a huge contract of 700 pages. And we don't know what we're getting into in a war, hell, horrible game. Yeah, let's do that. That sounds fun. Yeah. And then we got stuck here because we were too egotistical and too cocky, but it's all for the experience. So it's all good. But wait, what you asked me? I got way off track.
With the walk-in, is it one of these trickster spirits that walks in? Is it?
It could be, but generally it's your oversoul. So it's you
Okay.
helping you at different stages of the life. Like 6 months ago, half of me and my children knew I changed. They said, did you walk out? I'm like, I didn't walk out. I like half walked out. I traded the frequencies in the soul that I was being because my career is changing and I needed different skills, different, do you know what I mean? Different experiences because we're so old. So usually people have anywhere from 10 to 40 different aspects of them. Unlike we're told, they're not Arcturian, they're Fae, they're dragon, they're whatever. They're a famous character. Maybe they're Caesar or, you know what I mean? They're a combination of things that they bring in to win and have a good time in this life. And when it's not working out or when it's time to change, sometimes the whole thing will walk out and a whole new being will walk in. Because here's what we don't understand. We say we do what we don't. This is just a container. This is just a container. I could have wine in this cup. I can have water in this cup. I can have Coke in this cup. How many things could I have in this cup? I could have rocks in this cup. I could have anything in this cup, right? It's a container.
Yeah.
Guess what? I can go to my sink right now and dump this out. And guess what? I can put something else in this cup, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all this is. And we are way too attached. They want you to be attached to this body. They want you to be here's a question, Tim.
Sure.
What sex is a soul? Male or female?
I don't think it has one, does it?
There you go. But we're so attached to what? You're a male, I'm a female, right? We're so attached to body identity. We're so attached to gender identity. And when we're attached to all these programs, we don't have time to think about the stuff I'm talking about, right? You have to get beyond the programs and go up to the upper densities and start asking questions to get out of here. But do you see how they keep us? They keep us going to programs, right? The breeding program. What's the breeding program? Have you had a kid? I've had 4. I've been part of the breeding program. We're not even talking about the military or the SSP or the ET breeding program. I'm talking about the game breeding program. Who says? Well, you're not a woman. I've had 4 kids naturally.
Mm-hmm.
I am telling you, anyone who says birth is an amazing spiritual experience, they're lying. It is hell. The baby literally rips your body apart if you don't have a cesarean from the inside out. Where do we get these programs? Hallmark movies, diaper commercials, baby showers? Do you hear the extent when you stop and think and you don't have the distractions? They keep us running. They keep us in 9-to-5 jobs. Maybe you and I aren't stuck in that, but they keep us in 9-to-5 jobs and they keep us going to baseball games and they keep us raising these kids that they put us in the breeding and they keep us in marriage and they keep us fighting and they keep us going to the bank and they keep us paying off our credit cards and they keep us watching Netflix and on and on. Like, how are you supposed to get out of here? They've got you right where they want you in every single program. Arguing about identity. Everybody's like, if you're awake, vote. I'm like, why would you ever vote if you're awake? Like, this is a game. Have you guys played a game? Most of you have played games. Some of you men are big gamers, and I know you've played the games. Are you going to vote? Is your character going to vote in the game and think you actually get a choice about anything that happens in the game that's coded and scripted? No, that's not an awake thing. That's a stupid thing. Like, you're not awake. You can tell me. I mean, I could ask you 3 questions and tell you if you're getting out of here. It's how attached you are to how many programs, Not you. I'm saying the generic you, not you.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, yeah. I you mention it now. As I'm getting older, I'm getting less attached to less things. If that makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think that somewhat happens because I don't want to say we get bored, but I think we do get, like, how many baseball games can you watch? Like, how many baby showers can you go to? How many I mean, I abhor weddings. I'm sorry. I mean, that's a huge program, of course. The Avalon program, they start that young with the Disney movies. Did you guys, I have a question.
Yeah.
In my school in Chicago, maybe it was just a weird school or like a program in school, like they all are. We watched Disney movies in class all the time. Do you remember
Really?
that? We watched like, yeah, we watched like Bambi and Cinderella, and that's all. I mean, of course, now we know Disney's major MK Ultra programming. We all know that, right? But I was just so programmed. Like, you get married, you have kids. There's programs, right? All the
Not,
world over.
not the live action stuff we did, not the animated stuff.
You mean like live action? Like, give me an example of something like you watched.
Um, like the stuff from the live action, like the Francis the Kicking Mule and stuff like that.
Oh, you were in a different program than I was. I was in a cartoon program.
No, no, no. They would never show you a Disney cartoon, but like
It
you would
doesn't, it
see,
just blows my mind that they did, though, I think
yeah.
that's crazy. I don't know.
No, you would never see anything like a Steamboat Willie short or anything like that, but you would see yeah, but you would see you'd see like a Don Knotts movie or something like that.
Oh, okay. Still programming, of course. I mean, it's all programming,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I had a guy, he came to put my security system in, and I'm like, I also think they deliberately bring certain people in my house, but that's another story. And I'm like, oh, where'd you work before this? Of course, you can guess the answer. The military.
Yeah.
Oh, can you talk about, like, in a certain division? He goes, it's classified. I'm like, what do you mean classified? Of course, I'm not going to let that go. He's like, let's just say it had to do with misinformation. I'm like, what do you mean misinformation? He's like, media and misinformation. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, actually, he goes, I actually took a early something or something out of the military because he goes, I didn't like what I had to do. And I'm like, are you in my house right now? Like, how crazy is that they
Yeah.
send this military guy who knows it's really installing, right? You guys do know you all have black web shows, right? You guys do know every single person has eye implants. I can prove that to you. That is hardcore science. All you guys have heart implants, bladder implants. All your pets have eye implants. You guys have no clue what this place is. It is so much worse than you think. Everyone will know, though. That's the thing. Like, probably, I think, because the timeline just upgraded a little bit, so we're running at a higher frequency, a lot of this stuff is going to come out to the masses.
That'd be interesting. Just to have it come out, I think it would be interesting. I don't think that I think there's too much that's being held back. You know what I'm
Isn't it
saying?
funny that we're so distracted, like UFOs, like the whole thing with what's his name, Elizondo? That is
Well,
hilarious. Yeah, you know the chandelier UFO. That's the big
yes.
thing on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he canceled his wine bar tour. I didn't realize he was in wine bars. They're like, he's touring wine bars. I'm like, whatever. But yeah, he postponed his wine bar tour after he was caught lying like 70 times. But yeah, I think that's all the sizzle and distraction. Like, who wants to know, like, there's eye implants when, like, we're afraid of alien invasion, like, but those are the close to home things that you guys need to know about who your controllers are. Do you want to be here? Do you want to come back here? How do you get out of here? I'm sorry, I think that's crucial information. And now that my kids are grown and they all have good jobs, and you know what I mean, now I feel I can talk about this stuff, if that makes sense. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, there's less danger to them, and you're taking on more of the responsibility, right?
Right, but I think it's selfish for me to know, and I could talk about this stuff for like another 30 hours, probably 300 hours, but and tell you just tons and tons of stuff. But to have this information and not share it, I think I wouldn't feel right about that. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
think there are people that will resonate with it. There are people whose lives have been changed by it, and that's who I'm here for. I'm not here
Yeah.
for everybody, but I'm here for those that resonate and are ready for it.
Yeah. No, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Well, I tell you what, Dr. Kim, we'll have to have you on another time, and we'll have to go down this road again because there's so much more to go down.
Can
I
we show
mean,
pictures? Are we able to show pictures on the show?
uh, do you have some?
Well, I mean, if you have me back, I'll send you more pictures than you can, I don't know, show. And
Well, you know what? If you have some, what we can do in the meantime, if you have some pictures that you want to show, we could put it up on our blog on the
I
blog.
can send you a
I could
couple.
put
I'm not going to send you a ton because my kids will be like, I told you not to send, but I'll send you a couple.
yeah, send me a couple. I'll put them up on the blog and we can attach the blog on darknessradioshow.com. And we can make a special blog page
Oh,
and let
awesome.
people
Yeah,
see some.
I'll send you a few. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll have people check out some pictures from that are associated with today's show.
that'd be great. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, folks, if you want to get to know more about Dr. Kimberly McGeorge, we have a website attached to the description of this program, so you can get to know a little bit more about her and check out more about Dr. Kim. So there you go. Dr. Kim, I want to thank you so much for being on the program today.
Thank you. Great conversation. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Great conversation as well. Thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
For more audio and video archives of the show, fascinating articles, and cool swag, please visit darknessradioshow.com. Thank you for watching. And now more than ever, remember to be a light in someone's darkness.